As the war in Israel heats up to the highest level that it's been, the prime minister of Israel today made an announcement that basically this war is about to kick into an even higher gear. We're going to talk about that in just a second. In this special edition of Deep Dive, we want to share with you an interest of the United States. It's not getting much interest here on the major media in the West, and it should. And I hope that in part because of what happens here that it does pretty soon. But just to set the stage for what follows, I want to make sure that you're aware, because many in the United States aren't, about a vulnerability to American citizens on the ground in Israel. First, this from Nora O'Donnell.
Well, tonight, hundreds of American citizens are trapped in Gaza, unable to escape the war zone or find basic supplies. CBS's Adriana Diaz spoke with a Chicago area man desperate to get his family out.
I have, one hand on my heart and one hand on the phone.
Nabil al-Sharafa says death is getting closer and closer to his mother, Naila al-Sharafa, an American trapped in Gaza. She took this video inside her family's home.
They're bombing the area.
I hear the bombs while I'm talking to her.
You do?
On the phone. It's terrifying.
Al-Sharafa, who lives in California, was on a 10-day trip to Gaza to visit her sick mother, but now is one of up to 600 American citizens with no way out. Her son signed up for these State Department alerts, authenticated by CBS News. A message for Americans in Israel, a U.S. ally, provides details for an evacuation ship. One for Americans in Gaza says the Egypt border crossing may open and you should assess your personal safety and security before heading there. Negotiations allowing Americans out have failed. Al-Sharafa says his mother made 4 attempts at the crossing, but was prevented at one point by an Israeli airstrike. The U.S. and Israel also blame Hamas.
Hamas has blocked them from leaving.
The Israeli Americans are getting charter flights, cruise ships, food, Wi-Fi. The U.S. citizens in Gaza, what are they getting? I truly feel betrayed by my government. All I'm requesting is equal protection of the citizens.
That last line there really, really got to me, that he feels betrayed by his government. Now, look, this has been, I would think it's the 20th or 21st day since this war began. And so far, you have heard very little out of the U.S. government about even the plight of this, about even what's going on the ground, how they're being helped. Now, let me show you another of the families, and this is symbolic of what's been going on the ground. I'm going to show you here a piece that was done, a bit of a piece on CNN earlier about one of the families here, one of the 600 at least that's gone on the ground. Take a look.
U.S. officials say as many as 600 Americans are still trapped in Gaza, among them a Massachusetts couple, and look at them there, and their 1-year-old son. Here's an update on this family we told you about earlier this week.
Hi, this is Abu Dokal recording this voice memo from Gaza Strip, specifically Rafah City.
A Massachusetts family stuck in Gaza, waiting to cross into Egypt through the Rafah crossing for the past 14 days. Abu Dokal describing the dire situation in a voice memo sent to CNN by his attorney, Sami Nabulsi.
The airstrikes have been intensifying. Last night, we could still hear bombardment all around us. Some are through airstrikes where we could actually hear the missiles fly over the house or basically hit near us. My son was not able to sleep. We've been trying to soothe him as much as we can and keep him shielded from the wrath of the war.
And he says supplies are running low, including basic needs for their 1-year-old son.
Unfortunately, yesterday we ran out of milk for him. We opened the last box, and basically tonight we would be completely out. It would be his first night ever in his entire life to go to sleep without having milk.
Okay, let me underscore here. These are American citizens. I know there's a lot of people are arguing back and forth in terms of this war and the people in the Gaza Strip. Some are saying, well, hey, the Palestinians, that's where Hamas came from, and not a lot of sympathy for that, actually, which is troubling to me just on a humanitarian level. But you can't make that argument here, not as an American. These are our citizens. These are passport holders that belong in this country, and our government apparently is doing very little to bring them home. And you saw in that first article there where the State Department continues to say, hey, here's what we're trying to do. making us sound pretty impotent. Now, look, just let's say about 10 days ago, President Biden went to Israel, and he met with Benjamin Netanyahu.
We have had true
his from his cabinet and his war cabinet, and you'll see here in just a second, he was coming down, and this is making a big issue because he went to say, hey, we're going to show we're standing in solidarity with Israel, because we're behind you with this horrific attack that you suffered. It's terrible. And then you see this big famous scene right here where Biden gives a big hug to Benjamin Netanyahu and one of the other members of his cabinet, I believe. And look, this is when something else should have happened. Okay, give him support, give him encouragement for the attack that they had, but there's another issue at stake here, and that is the plight of the American citizens. Now, just push pause here for a second, because I want you to understand where I'm coming at from this. Now, as a member of the U.S. Armed Forces, I spent 21 years on active duty, went to 4 combat deployments, and this stuff means a lot to me. Now, you've probably heard of the statement that no man left behind. And in case you're maybe not aware, let me give you just a little brief about where that came from. First of all, let me show you this small piece here about the U.S. Armed Forces and that whole concept.
The United States military has a policy that no one should be left behind. You've probably heard that before. But the extremes the military goes to bring home long missing service members might surprise you.
And he is so right. There is nothing that we won't do. It's embedded in us. It's in our DNA. We don't leave anybody behind, whether if they're killed in action, if they're wounded, if they're caught as a prisoner, we don't leave anybody behind. That is our priority. And it's an article of faith. Now, there was you're probably familiar with the movie Black Hawk Down about the situation in Somalia in the 1990s, to where several American helicopters were knocked down and they had to be rescued. There was a documentary done some years later by the actual men who were in this. And well, I just want you to watch this. Take a look.
Part of the Ranger Creed is I will never leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of an enemy.
And that's just one part of the Ranger Creed. The Ranger Creed has 6 stanzas to it.
Even though technically the aviators or the occupants of Super 6-1 weren't Rangers, they were special operations guys. That creed or that saying, I think, transcends units. There's an understanding, I would think, within the special operations community that that's just how we operate. So it was never a question of would we go to the crash site to security. It was when.
It was never a question of whether we would do it. It was only a question of when. Now, that's the military. Now, how much more should we expect of our government to have that same, if not even stronger, mentality to help American people, and especially overseas, but especially when they're in a war zone and need desperate help? You would think that shouldn't even have to be an article of faith. That should just be an automatic assumption. But let me show you a little bit about what our government is doing. Here is a clip to where the Secretary of State, our #1 diplomat, here's what he said why we haven't had these 600 Americans released yet.
In terms of what's happening in Gaza, I know there are an estimated 500 to 600 Americans there. Is there any chance Israel lets some of those Americans out, or Egypt allows some of those Americans in?
You're exactly right. And to date, at least, Hamas has blocked them from leaving, showing once again its total disregard for civilians of any kind.
Okay, I'm sorry. That is just a pathetic statement. That is just a horrible. You talk about something that communicates weakness abroad. That's it. That's the very definition of it. Hamas is stopping it. Are you kidding me? I mean, even if there actually were some Hamas there, you're going to tell me that the most powerful military in the history of the world that President Biden said that we were on 60 Minutes about 2 weeks ago is going to be stopped because of a handful of Hamas fighters with machine guns? Is that what you're telling me? So we're like hampered with that and stop. That's the reason. That's just nonsense. That's not the reason. This could be solved in a day, in a matter of hours, if there was the political will. When President Biden went to Benjamin Netanyahu and they had that big hug that you saw a second ago, what should have happened the minute he got behind closed doors was he should have said something to the effect of, all right, here's the deal. We have 600 Americans here. There's about 1,700 altogether of foreign nationals. They're in the area of the Rafah Gate. They're in the far south near the Egyptian border. They're coming out tomorrow. Then he should have looked around to his agent and said, all right, I want a number of military transport planes on the tarmac in 24 hours. I want them landed in Egypt. I want you to coordinate with Egypt and get this done and make sure that they get all the clearances that we need. I want transportation waiting at that gate to start getting people to safety. And I want this done in 24 hours. This is not a request. This is not, I'm asking anything else. I'm not seeking anybody's permission. I'm telling you, we're in Israel to give you guys complete and total support here. We've given you blanket cover internationally. You know, now hundreds of thousands of artillery shells, billions more we're trying to give. We give 3.8 billion every year. We give Egypt 1.4 billion every year. There's something that we expect for that money. And when it comes to something like this, this is the payoff time. The idea that the president of the United States has gone to Israel, has talked to his counterparts in Egypt and elsewhere, and doesn't have just the minimum basic to say those gates will be opened on this date tomorrow or at this time tomorrow is boggles my mind. How is it that we can say, I don't care, you know, that what happens with this war going on here? In fact, as I'm going to talk to in a minute, it's about to get a lot hotter, that we're not getting American citizens out of harm's way, and they're at the gate. We keep sending notes from the State Department and the gates don't open. People keep going and getting turned back. They're running out of food. They're running out of water, which of course is endemic throughout all of the Gaza Strip. But don't you even care about the American citizens that are there? This needs to happen right away. There is no reason. Let me just categorically say there is no reason why senior U.S. officials from the president on down should tell their Israeli counterparts, this is not acceptable. We're helping you, and we expect complete cooperation immediately to get that damn gate open and get those American people out of there. You always people want to talk about, you know, we need to see American leadership. Well, this is it. This is where it matters. And American leadership needs to be, we will get our people out. This isn't even a hard situation. I mean, this is not like the hostages that are being held in Gaza by the Hamas people. That's a really hard situation. There's no easy answers for that. You know, you can't send people, you know, special forces in, try to take them out, because it's, you know, the chances of even finding them is remote. But if you do, the chances of them getting killed is very high. It's hard to do. And without a lot of intelligence and time, it's just, I don't know what the government could do on that, short of making negotiations. This, on the other hand, is not hard. This is a pure and simple matter of will. It should be the will of the president of the United States to tell the prime minister of Israel, before you start this big ground incursion, which, according to Netanyahu earlier today, probably is in the early stages now, but before it goes any further, and certainly before it gets near those people down in the south, those gates will be open, and we're going to get all of those foreign nationals out. I mean, we're going to do it. It's going to be messy. It's going to be chaotic, especially because they haven't taken the time to get this planned and sorted out right. That's another area of problem that we need to address later. But let's get this done right now. This can be solved today. This can be done right now. And look, this, as I pointed out, this is about to get a lot worse. This is an urgent matter right now. And here's why. Prime Minister Netanyahu went on Israeli television just a couple of hours ago. And actually, I was on air with NBC at the time, and they immediately asked me. And so here's what I told him and why this is so urgent. He said, this is basically our second war of independence. It is the mission of my life. So that tells you that he is absolutely committed and considers this an outright existential battle. And I think there's very little that they won't do to take this to complete victory. They have no intention of going half measures. They clearly are going all out. And if there is going to be an all-out ground war in the Gaza Strip, and there are 600 Americans that are trying to get out, that have passports, that are sitting at the gate right now. Look, this can't get any easier. Open the gates, let the people out, get transportation in there, coordinate it through Egypt, Make sure that there's, safety and food and everything for them to get out of there, and make it happen right now. If the president fails to do this, and if this war continues to escalate, and then whether through Israeli bombs in that area or through Hamas fighting, that now a lot of those Americans die, or God forbid, if they actually starve to death. You saw that child, they're already out of formula. So now it's not even clear where they're going to get water or any other food. And if they start dying because of starvation or malnutrition or disease, that's going to be on the president's, that's on his watch. He has to answer for that. Let's avoid that problem. Let's avoid him having to answer for anything, and let's get those people out there. Let's get them out. Now, listen, I rarely do this on this channel. We'd like to just provide information, but on this one, because the time is so critical, I'm asking everybody who watches this, share this with everybody you know. Send it to your members of Congress. Use it and tagging something on the White House. Tag the Pentagon, your local newspaper. I don't care. Anybody. Put it on your social media. Send it everywhere. We have to get those American people out right now. They're our fellow citizens. I could care less what color they are, what their nationality is, where their birthright, what kind of a religion they're in. Doesn't care. Don't care. They are Americans just like you, just like me, and they deserve to be protected. We dare not leave anybody behind, especially when it's easily within our power to get them out. Let's make this happen. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next episode of Deep Dive.